consider the first source and center. Let's go back to page 4. This is the only discussion in the papers of the first source and center as such. They're not talking about the universal Father. Here we take inventory for the first time in these papers of the 7 absolutes of infinity. Father, Son, Spirit, Paradise, Deity, Universal, and Unqualified Absolute. The first source and center is original reality. The next 3 are actual reality. The last 3 are potential reality. God, the universal Father, is the personality of the first source and center. Now, he's had the experience in one level of our stack of pancakes of being just like the deity absolute, pre-personal. He is pre-personal. He is never not personal. The least you can say about God is that in a certain sense he is pre-personal. But you must then quickly add he is also personal. And then you should add he is also super-personal. And these are the sub-absolute manifestations of God. He is, to all functional intents and purposes, still pre-personal because he still sends out thought adjusters, fragments of his pre-personal nature. He's personal because he creates. He, this very day on Paradise, may be creating a creator son in conjunction with the eternal son. He is a continuing creator. He eventuates. How, I don't know, except he's not creating now, but he's doing something that brings something into existence. And this adds to the personnel of the absentite level. He's both actual and potential. He's both deity and he is not deity. God, the universal Father, is the personality of the first source and center, and as such maintains personal relations of infinite control over all coordinate and subordinate sources and centers. Such control is personal and infinite in potential, even though it may never actually function owing to the perfection of the function of such coordinate and subordinate sources and centers and personalities. God could take over the administration of spiritual gravity. But why should he perform such a needless and redundant act? The Father himself could not improve on the function of the eternal Son in that domain because the eternal Son is the perfect and final expression of the Father's creative purpose as concerns that domain. In other words, the Father doesn't actually interfere with anything because everything is working perfectly at this level. Even if it doesn't work quite perfectly, I don't think he interferes. Let's take a Michael son. He's not absolutely perfect. And what's more, he's coping with reactions that are beyond his control. The free will actions of really imperfect beings. But the Father doesn't interfere. He lets this creator Michael work it out. At least he doesn't interfere on the finite level. What he is doing on upper levels, I don't know. But they do say that blind and unforeseen accidents do not happen in the cosmos. But on the finite level, and working with my time units, which are pretty short, I've got to use the word chance. Even though I am told in the papers that chance is a word which signifies that man is either too lazy or too ignorant to find out. If I knew enough I would eliminate the word chance from my vocabulary. But practically speaking, I can't live without it, neither can you folks. The first source and center is therefore primal in all domains. Deified or undeified, personal or impersonal, actual or potential, finite or infinite. No thing or being, no relativity or finality exists except in direct or indirect relation to and dependence on the primacy of the first source and center. Ever remember that man's comprehension of the universal Father is a personal experience. God, as your spiritual Father, is comprehensible to you and to all other mortals. But your experiential, worshipful concept of the universal Father must always be less than your philosophic postulate of the infinity of the first source and center, the I am. The Father is the personality of the first source and center. Any of us can sense the personality of any of us because we are persons. But this does not mean that we necessarily comprehend the physiology of that person, the anatomy of that person, the endocrinology of that person, the cortex of that person, or any other aspect of that person except his contactable personality and that which goes with it. The term first source and center is a larger term than universal Father, but not a more meaningful term to human beings. The meaning is inversely proportional to the size of the concept. It is the smallest concept of the universe, of the first source and center, that has meaning to us. The deity of the first source and center is a larger concept than the word God, because the word God implies personality, and deity may be larger than personality. The deity of the first source and center would encompass his prepersonal and superpersonal functions. The word God implies only his personal functions and relationships. And the word Father is the smallest word of all. The word Father takes that aspect of God which is related to us and names it. The smallest idea of God is the most meaningful because God is much too big for us. Therefore, as we narrow our concept, our feeling for meaning increases, and the value of the concept goes up enormously to us. We worship the Father. We do not worship the first source and center as such, except as we, by implication, worship him in our worship of the Father. Jesus at no time attempted to portray any aspect of God larger than the Father aspect. That was a job in itself. Yes, he never attempted to portray the justice of the Trinity, just the love of the Father. He stopped the story of the prodigal son before justice entered the picture. He merely portrayed a father's joy. When we speak of the Father, we mean God as he is understandable by his creatures both high and low. But there is much more of deity which is not comprehensible to universal creatures. God, your Father, and my Father, is that phase of the infinite which we perceive in our personalities as an actual experiential reality. But the I am ever remains as our hypothesis of all that we feel is unknowable of the first source and center. And even that hypothesis probably falls far short of the unfathomed infinity of original reality. This is a Melchizedek. The universe of universes, with its innumerable host of inhabiting personalities, is a vast and complex organism. But the first source and center is infinitely more complex than the universes and personalities which have become real in response to his willful mandates. When you stand in awe of the magnitude of the Master Universe, pause to consider that even this inconceivable creation can be no more than a partial revelation of the infinite. Infinity is indeed remote from the experience level of mortal comprehension. But even in this age on Urantia, your concepts of infinity are growing. Many, and they will continue to grow throughout your endless career stretching onward into future eternity. Unqualified infinity is meaningless to the finite creature, but infinity is capable of self-limitation and is susceptible of reality expression to all levels of universe existence. That's the pole running through all levels of the firehouse. And the face which the infinite turns toward all universe personalities is the face of the Father, the universal Father of love. We're tackling a concept here which is tougher than the unqualified absolute. The unqualified absolute is a comforting concept. I can't know anything about it. But this is a much more intriguing concept. I can know much about this even now. I can even feel something of this. Let's go back to the preceding page. We're backing into this concept. The bottom of the page. The I am is the infinite. The I am is also infinity. That's the infinite. This is infinity.
Please repeat. I didn't.
The yolk is the infinite.
Yes.
The white is infinity.
The infinite, yes.
There's an implication of the personal and the not personal there. Infinity is not a person, but the infinite, yes. From the sequential time viewpoint, all reality has its origin in the infinite I am, whose solitary existence in past infinite eternity must be a finite creature's premier philosophic postulate. They validated our first frame. The concept of the I am connotes unqualified infinity, the undifferentiated reality of all that could ever be in all of an infinite eternity. As an existential concept, the I am is neither deified nor undeified, neither actual nor potential, neither personal nor impersonal, neither static nor dynamic. No qualification can be applied to the infinite except to state that the I am is. The philosophic postulate of the I am is the one universe concept which is somewhat more difficult of comprehension than that of the unqualified absolute. To a finite mind, there simply must be a beginning. And though there never was a real beginning to reality, still there are certain source relationships which reality manifests to infinity. The pre-reality, primordial, eternity situation must be thought of something like this. They're now going to describe our first frame up here. At some infinitely distant, hypothetical, past eternity moment, hypothetical meaning we've gone through the looking glass. At this moment, the I am may be conceived as both thing and no thing, as both cause and effect, as both volition and response. At this hypothetical eternity moment, there is no differentiation throughout all infinity. Infinity is filled by the infinite. The infinite encompasses infinity. This is the hypothetical static moment of eternity. What's the first level of total deity function? Static. Actuals are still contained within their potentials, and potentials have not yet appeared within the infinity of the I am. And now they make that vital statement. We do not have a custard, we have a fried egg. But even in this conjectured situation, we must assume the existence of the possibility of self-will. A custard is undifferentiated. A fried egg is clearly differentiated. These papers do not validate a monad. The word monad would be a custard. They validate, at best, a unified duality. In considering, we're jumping over our introduction, the genesis of reality, ever bear in mind that all absolute reality is from eternity and is without beginning of existence, our last frame. By absolute reality, we refer to the three existential persons of deity, the Isle of Paradise, and the three absolutes. These seven realities are coordinately eternal, notwithstanding that we resort to time, space, language in presenting their sequential origins to human beings. In following the chronological portrayal of the origins of reality, there must be a postulated theoretical moment of first volitional expression and first repercussional reaction within the I am. We're now going from the first to the second frame. In our attempts to portray the genesis and generation of reality, this stage may be conceived as the self-differentiation of the infinite one, the yoke, from the infinitude, the white. But the postulation of this dual relationship must always be expanded to a triune concept by the recognition of the eternal continuum of the infinity, the I am. And there are two ways you can look at that. You can either say the first frame is still existent, or the infinity is now functional as the universal absolute. This self-metamorphosis of the I am culminates in the multiple differentiation of deified and of undeified reality. That's the first one. Of potential and actual reality. That's something yet again. That's when he produces the Son, Spirit, and Paradise. And of certain other realities that can hardly be so classified. These differentiations of the theoretical monistic I am are eternally integrated by simultaneous relationships arising within the same I am. The pre-potential, pre-actual, pre-personal, monothetic pre-reality, which, though infinite, is revealed as absolute in the presence of the first source and center, and as personality in the limitless love of the universal Father. I'm so glad they parachute out of that paragraph and hit the ground in the last phrases. By these internal metamorphoses, the I am is establishing the basis for a sevenfold self-relationship. The philosophic time concept of the solitary I am and the transitional time concept of the I am as triune, the infinite one, the infinitude, the infinity, can now be enlarged to encompass the I am as sevenfold. This sevenfold or seven-phase nature may be best suggested in relation to the seven absolutes of infinity. They're presenting the I am here as first one on one level, then on the next level as three-faceted, and now on the third level as seven-faceted. And let me read you in sequence what they call the seven facets of the I am. I am Father. of the eternal Son. I am cause of eternal paradise. I am one with the eternal Son. It's a relationship of the conjoint actor. I am self-associative relationship to the universal absolute. I am self-qualified relationship to the unqualified, the deity absolute. I am static reactive relationship to the universal, to the unqualified absolute. I am as I am relationship to self. Let's read these. I am Father of the eternal Son. This is the primal personality relationship of actualities. The absolute personality of the Son makes absolute the fact of God's fatherhood and establishes the potential sonship of all personalities. This relationship, spirit, establishes the personality of the infinite and consummates its spiritual revelation in the personality of the original Son. This phase of the I Am is partially experienceable on spiritual levels even by mortals, who, while yet in the flesh, may worship our Father. I am cause of eternal paradise. This is the primal impersonal relationship of actualities. The original non-spiritual association. The universal Father is God as love. The universal controller is God as pattern. This relationship establishes the potential of form, configuration, and determines the master pattern of impersonal and non-spiritual relationship, the master pattern from which all copies are made. Every space level faithfully portrays the outlines of the pattern of paradise. It is an ellipse. Even our planet circles its sun in an ellipse. The master physical controllers, the universe power directors, copy the paradise pattern.
Yeah, it does too.
Yes. I am one with the eternal Son. This union of the Father and the Son in the presence of paradise initiates the creative cycle which is consummated in the appearance of conjoint personality in the eternal universe. From the finite mortal's viewpoint, reality has its true beginnings with the eternity appearance of the Havana creation. This creative act of deity is by and through the God of action, who is in essence, the unity of the Father-Son, manifested on and to all levels of the actual. Therefore is divine creativity unfailingly characterized by unity, and this unity is the outward reflection of the absolute oneness of the duality of the Father-Son and of the Trinity of the Father-Son Spirit. I am self-associative. This is the primordial association of the statics and potentials of reality. In this relationship, all qualifieds and unqualifieds are compensated. This phase of the I Am is best understood as the universal absolute, the unifier of the deity and the unqualified absolutes. I am self-qualified. This is the infinity benchmark. I love that figure of speech. This is the infinity benchmark, bearing eternal witness to the volitional self-limitation of the I Am, by virtue of which there was achieved threefold self-expression and self-revelation. This phase of the I Am is usually understood as the deity absolute. This threefold self-expression and self-revelation was paradise, the Son, and the Spirit. 6. I am static reactive. This is the endless matrix, the possibility for all future cosmic or universe expansion. This phase of the I Am is perhaps best conceived as the supergravity presence of the unqualified absolute, or space potency. I am as I am. This is the stasis, or self-relationship of infinity, the eternal fact of infinity reality, and the universal truth of reality infinity. Insofar as this relationship is discernible as personality, it is revealed to the universes in the Divine Father of all personality, even of absolute personality. Insofar as this relationship is impersonally expressible, it is contacted by the universe as the absolute coherence of pure energy and of pure spirit in the presence of the Universal Father. Insofar as this relationship is conceivable as an absolute, it is revealed in the primacy of the first source and center. In him, we all live and move and have our being, from the creatures of space to the citizens of paradise. And this is just as true of the master universe as of the infinitesimal automaton, just as true of what is to be, of that which is, and of what has been. And now maybe I think this sentence means a little more. Your experiential worshipful concept of the Universal Father must always be less than your philosophic postulate of the infinity of the first source and center, the I am. Turn to page 109. Betty's asked a question about the language I used in discussing the origin of the eternal Son. 109. In the section Deity Personalization. By the technique of trinitization, the Father divests himself of that unqualified spirit personality which is the Son. But in so doing, he constitutes himself the Father of this very Son, and thereby possesses himself of unlimited capacity to become the Divine Father of all subsequently created, eventuated, or other personalized types of intelligent will creatures. As the absolute and unqualified person, the Father can function only as and with the Son. Now here's that unification that comes about in trinitization. Having given this away, the Father never again can be this except in conjunction with the Son. But as a personal Father, he continues to bestow personality upon the diverse hosts of the differing levels of intelligent will creatures. After the Father is bestowed upon the personality of his Son, the fullness of himself, and when this act of self-bestowal is complete and perfect, of the infinite power and nature which are thus existent in the Father-Son union, the eternal partners conjointly bestow those qualities and attributes which constitute still another being like themselves. And this conjoint personality, the infinite spirit, completes the existential personalization of deity. The Son is indispensable to the fatherhood of God. The Spirit is indispensable to the fraternity of the second and third persons. Three persons are a minimum social group. But this is the least of all the many reasons for believing in the inevitability of the conjoint actor. The first source and center is the infinite Father personality, the unlimited source personality. The eternal Son is the unqualified personality absolute, that divine being who stands throughout all time and eternity as the perfect revelation of the personal nature of God. Not a revelation of the total nature of God, but the final revelation of the personal nature of the first source and center. Yeah. The infinite spirit is the conjoint personality, the unique personal consequence of the everlasting Father-Son union. They say Father personality, personality absolute, conjoint personality. The personality of the first source and center is the personality of infinity, minus the absolute personality of the eternal Son. The personality of the third source and center is the superadditive consequence of the union of the liberated Father personality and the absolute Son personality. So in our fourth frame, where we say the Father and the Son, the "and" personalizes as the conjoint actor. The universal Father, the eternal Son, and the infinite Spirit are unique persons. None is a duplicate. Each is original. All are united. It's a beautiful sentence. Let's sort of take inventory now. At this point, we have followed we've started with the philosophic concept of a solitary I am. We've looked at a transitional concept of the I am's triune. We have looked at a completed concept of the I am as sevenfold. And I would like to symbolize this concept of the I am as sevenfold by asking you to visualize a cube. This cube is a good symbol for the 7 facets of the I am, 6 facets of which point outward and 1 points inward. 1 facet of our 6-faceted cube is an internal facet. Now, I want you to visualize 6 additional things. If you choose, well, make them spheres. Each one standing at right angles to 1 facet of this cube. We add only 6 spheres because our 7th sphere is inside the cube. You follow me? The first of these is the internal sphere. We're discussing now the 7 absolutes of infinity. It simply says flatly, the 7 absolutes are the premise of reality. If you try to think back of these 7 absolutes, you are dealing with a pre-reality situation. You're on the wrong side of the looking glass. In talking about the first source and center, they call him first person of deity and primal non-deity pattern. He's the first person of deity because he expressed himself personally in the second person of deity. He is the primal non-deity pattern because he expressed that pattern in the Isle of Paradise. Universal Father, Creator, Controller, Upholder, Universal Love, Eternal Spirit, Infinite Energy, Potential of all potentials and Source of all actuals, Stability of all statics and Dynamism of all change, Source of pattern and Father of persons. Collectively, all 7 absolutes equivalent to infinity, but the Universal Father himself actually is infinite. And the second source and center. You notice there is a parallel in sentence construction in these paragraphs. Second person of deity, the eternal and original Son, the absolute personality realities of the I am and the basis for the realization, revelation of I am personality. No personality can hope to attain the Universal Father except through his eternal Son. Neither can personality attain to spirit levels of existence apart from the action and aid of this absolute pattern for all personalities. The second source and center, in the second source and center, spirit is unqualified while personality is absolute. The paradise source and center. Second non-deity pattern. The Father is the first non-deity pattern. The eternal Isle of Paradise. The basis for the realization, revelation of I am force. Let's go back and trace that. I am personality, it says in connection with the Son. I am force, it says in connection with paradise. and the foundation for the establishment of the gravity control throughout the universes. Regarding all actualized, non-spiritual, impersonal, and non-volitional reality, paradise is the absolute of patterns. Just as spirit energy is related to the universal Father through the absolute personality of the Mother Sun, so is all cosmic energy grasped in the gravity control of the first source and center through the absolute pattern of paradise. Paradise is not in space. Space exists relative to paradise, and the chronicity of motion is determined through paradise relationship. The eternal isle is absolutely at rest. All other organized and organizing energy is in eternal motion. In all space, only the presence of the unqualified absolute is quiescent, and the unqualified is coordinate with paradise. Paradise exists at the focus of space. The unqualified pervades it, and all relative existence has its being within this domain. The third source and center. Third person of deity, the conjoint actor, infinite integrator of paradise cosmic energies were the spirit energies of the eternal Sun. Perfect coordinator of the motives of will and the mechanics of force. Unifier of all actual and actualizing reality. Through the ministrations of his manifold children, the infinite spirit reveals the mercy of the eternal Sun, while at the same time functioning as the infinite manipulator, forever weaving the pattern of paradise into the energies of space. This self-same conjoint actor, this God of action, is the perfect expression of the limitless plans and purposes of the Father-Son, while functioning himself as the source of mind and the bestower of intellect upon the creatures of a far-flung cosmos. 5. The deity absolute. The causational, potentially personal possibilities of universal reality. The totality of all deity potential. The deity absolute is the purposive qualifier of the unqualified, absolute, and non-deity realities. The deity absolute is the qualifier of the absolute and the absolutizer of the qualified. The destiny inceptor. The consummator of universe destiny must be related to the deity absolute. This is the closest I know of in the Blue Book where they use language that even sounds like the consummator of universe destiny. And inceptor is a bringer to pass. This deity absolute qualifies the unqualified and absolutizes the relative or the qualified. 6. The unqualified absolute. Static, reactive, and abandoned. The unrevealed cosmic infinity of the I Am. Cosmic here, I think, is rather carefully used as the opposite of spirit. It's physical universe reality. Totality of non-deified reality and finality of all non-personal potential. Space limits the function of the unqualified, but the presence of the unqualified is without limit, infinite. The unqualified absolute is functionally limited to space, but his presence is not thus limited by space. There is a concept periphery to the master universe, but the presence of the unqualified is limitless. Even eternity cannot exhaust the boundless quiescence of this non-deity absolute. 7. The universal absolute. Unifier of the deified and the undeified, correlator of the absolute and the relative. The universal absolute, being static, potential, and associative, compensates the tension between the ever-existent and the uncompleted. Anything which is less than absolute is unfinished. The seven absolutes of infinity constitute the beginnings of reality, as mortal minds would regard it. The first source and center would appear to be antecedent to all absolutes. But such a postulate, however helpful, is invalidated by the eternity coexistence of the Son, the Spirit, the three absolutes, and the Paradise Isle. It is a truth that these absolutes are manifestations of the I Am first source and center. It is a fact that these absolutes never had a beginning, but are coordinate eternals with the first source and center. The relationships of absolutes in eternity cannot always be presented without involving paradoxes in the language of time and in the concept patterns of space. But regardless of any confusion concerning the origin of the seven absolutes of infinity, it is both fact and truth that all reality is predicated upon their eternity existence and infinity relationships. When we get to the last frame, now we're dealing with something that's not only true but also factual. Back of our last frame, we've got something which is got truth in it, but it's not fact. Duality begets duality. Duality begets triunity, and triunity is the ancestor of the 10,000 things. They're paraphrasing it here, I think. And then they again recap everything we've been through. Unity relationships, are we on? Unity relationships are relationships within the I Am. Duality relationships exist between the I Am as sevenfold and the seven absolutes of infinity. Here we've got our cube, and we are setting up 7 duality relationships, 6 of which are external to the cube, and 1 of which is internal to the cube. Going back to the preceding page, on 1155, this relationship is the relationship of the universal one of infinity. I am as I am. This is the relationship of the I am to the first source and center. And that is an internal relationship between 2 realities. In contrast to the other 6 duality relationships, which are external to the I Am. The first source and center is internal. All other absolutes are external. And now, they introduce the 3rd absolute relationship, triunity relationships. These are the functional associations of the 7 absolutes of infinity. And you get triunity relationships out of duality foundations because of the inevitability of such interassociations. The I Am is unqualified, infinity is unity. The dualities eternalize reality foundations. The triunities eventuate the realization of infinity as universal function. In attempting the description of the 7 triunities, attention is directed to the fact that the Universal Father is the primal member of each. He is, was, and ever will be the first universal Father Source, absolute center, primal cause, universal controller, limitless energizer, original unity, unqualified upholder, first person of deity, primal cosmic pattern, and essence of infinity. The universal Father is the personal cause of the absolutes. He is the absolute of absolutes. Gee, there's language in there, isn't there? Potential. That's the third circle, yes. That everybody, that they can be really sure. And always remember they say, in case of doubt, we always advance the creature. But I'm gonna try not to use my grace period of 30 days on survival. You superimpose on a real mammalian critter a spark of infinity. I don't think anyone this side of God would have the courage to do that. The indwelling of the adjuster, to me, testifies to God's originality and to God's amazing courage. Stop and think. We are the farthest out. We are the lowest on the totem pole. There is nothing below us which can know God. And yet he's given us a part of himself, something which I would expect him to do to folks that were way up topside. And yet he doesn't indwell them. He doesn't even indwell our near of kin unless they've done time, so to speak. The Adams usually have to serve on a world. The